Greetings, everyone. I am Dr. Upasana Singh from the School of MIG at UKZN. Today, I'm going to be presenting my research on the digital divide, in particular, a comparative study of commerce students in a South African and a Zimbabwean higher education institution. As we all know, during the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic, many higher education institutions were closed temporarily. As they resumed in an effort to save the academic year, academics and students were forced to transition to the online space, which highlighted the inequalities which exist in both access to technologies and the use of these technologies. So in essence, this study explores whether the existence of the digital divide has impacted on students' transition to online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. This research is part of a larger study on the impact of the digital divide during the COVID-19 pandemic on students at higher education institutions. In particular, we focused on undergraduate commerce students. An online survey tool was distributed electronically to gather primary data, and this tool consisted of 36 questions, 9 demographic, 25 rating scale or selection questions, and 2 open-ended responses to allow students to provide supporting feedback on the issues being investigated. The questionnaire was first piloted on 2 students at each of the institutions from the identified population for logic, flow, and understandability. Data was statistically analyzed using SPSS. The total sample for this study was 460 students, the large majority of them being female, between the ages of 18 to 25, who were essentially citizens of South Africa and Zimbabwe, respectively. The preliminary results indicated that during the early stages of the lockdown, majority of these students were resident in their home country, with a small minority being based in rural areas. The first aspect we would like to present today is the status of students' access to electricity during the COVID-19 lockdown. From the table, we can see that students in South Africa and in Zimbabwe at each of the selected higher education institutions indicated that they had access to relatively stable electricity and regular electricity, with the mean being above 3. When we asked students whether they received funding for their studies, a significant 76% in South Africa did, and a significant 65% did not. Therefore, we can see that the economic capital amongst these students differs greatly. An important aspect for us to understand whether there was a digital divide or not was the quality that students had of the internet connection during lockdown. 4 aspects were looked at, that was quality, speed, reliability, and signal. And we found that a small number of students had good access in terms of quality, reliability, speed, and signal. A large majority of the students had either poor access at times or good access at times. We then compared this with the quality of the internet access that they had during the data collection for the study. And what we noted was that in South Africa in particular, there was an increase in the number of students who had good access in terms of quality, signal, reliability, and speed. This could have been attributed to the fact that students were allowed back onto campus to make use of campus resources and infrastructure as the lockdowns eased. Due to time constraints, we're not going to be presenting all aspects of this research, but rather we're going to move on to focus on the understanding of students' experience of their transition from the face-to-face environment to online learning. Some of the aspects investigated included whether online learning encouraged students whether it facilitated deeper learning, facilitated easier completion of learning tasks, whether it allowed for more opportunities in terms of participation in learning activities, enhanced collaboration, communication, and encouraged independent learning. We also looked at whether it forced them to become self-motivated and structured, and how easy was it for them to adapt to online learning. In South Africa, students agreed or strongly agreed with all of the aspects which were investigated, except for the fact that it was easy for them to adapt to. However, in Zimbabwe, students only agreed to the fact that online learning facilitated easier completion of tasks, provided opportunities for participating in learning activities, helped to enhance communication, independent learning, self-motivation, and a structured routine. In contrast to South African students, the Zimbabwe students agreed that online learning was easy to adapt to. Factor analysis was then performed on these factors, and the two constructs which came out of the factor analysis was general usefulness and fostering of independence. The items included are as listed. It was found that in general, students found online learning generally useful and that it fostered independence. The last aspect is that of the student skill set. And as you can see, at both sides, students agreed with all 9 skills which were presented to them. This showed that students felt they developed many of these skills like communication, collaboration, empathy, personal well-being, flexibility, self-regulation, a growth mindset, independent learning, and critical thinking in the online environment. Once again, factor analysis was and we found that the two constructs which emerged were personal skills and engagement. It was found that items 4 to 9 fell under personal skills and items 1 to 3 under engagement. At both sides, students developed good personal skills and better engagement in the online learning environment. So to summarize, a significant majority of the students who access online learning access this through the institutional facilities provided. If they had to access on their own, typically it was connectivity in Zimbabwe, which was where students connected on their own. The quality of the internet access in relation to quality, reliability, signal, and speed was rated as poor to good overall at both sides. Despite being registered at traditionally face-to-face institutions without any prior experience in online learning, students indicated that it was easy to navigate and to use new online learning tools during the lockdown at both sites. However, the overall experience was largely positive only for the Zimbabwean students, while South African students highlighted that online learning facilitated easier completion of tasks, provided them with more opportunities to participate in learning activities, enhanced communication, and encouraged them to become independent learners, self-motivated learners, and more structured learners. Following the factor analysis, it was noted that the greater the literacy levels of students, the more they found online learning to be useful, and thus fostering independence at both sides. Students agreed that the transition to online learning developed in them a new skill set, which were broadly classified as personal skills and engagement skills at both sides. Thank you for listening to our presentation. And if you find this research useful, we hope that you will read the full paper.